let's do the pledge of allegiance first. Huh? I don't have it.
It's really neat.
I know. And I thought, wow, I'll go home and watch the ball game. The ball game's on right now. Hmm? All right, should we all rise for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are you coming?
Just so you all know, this is not going to become a habit.
Right. Because it made things quite difficult. Well, I agree.
I realize that. And Ann and I, we talked about it and we said, well, personnel is going to meet at 5:30, so we'll do 5:30. So we will not make a habit out of this, I promise. That's just, it was our mindset at the time. Well, that's what we ended up with. Well, simply really though, because the personnel subcommittee meeting was going to have to happen again in the regular meeting. So why bother to do it twice?
Yeah.
So that was,
Any public comment?
no.
Madam Chair, there are no public comment.
Thank you. I need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
You all saw the amendment to the minutes. Yes? Okay. We have one discussion and/or action item tonight before we go into executive session. And that is approval of policy DFD, gate receipts and admissions for first reading, as recommended by the Policy and Curriculum Subcommittee. I need a motion to accept in a second so we can discuss.
So moved.
Second,
All right, discussion.
would you like me to kind of give a little 10,000-foot view of this? I'm happy to. We didn't have a very good policy, to be honest. It was really just a couple of sentences. It wasn't inclusive. We didn't have a system in place. So there's a policy, a system, and a addendum that's procedure-based. It seems to be, we had a nice discussion in our subcommittee meeting, and everybody that was there had an opportunity to chime in, and I'm happy with it. So please let me know if you have any other questions, and I'm sure administration could also answer any questions.
Well, you know I have questions because I called you today.
Yes. So, and I can share a little bit about that, March, because then the rest of the committee can also provide some input on their thoughts. So one of the questions that.
Well, I also called Carly. I just wanted
Oh,
everybody to know that I let her know that
Yes.
I.
So is the idea that we would put 50% of gate receipts into more of a capital expense on an annual basis? And Marge's question was like, why? And how do we decide that? So that is an arbitrary number. It's just taking about half of the gate receipts for the year and putting it aside for bigger projects. And I'll just give you like a little example. I'm not talking about $1 million projects, but I'm talking about some bigger projects in the athletics budget, for example, for track and field. We budget annually for maybe new uniforms, new whatever they might need, if they need new throwing items, whatever, I don't know, I'm saying random words for track, but whatever supplies they might need. But that budget line is probably about $2,000. If we wanted to replace the hurdles for track, those are about $20,000. That's not a regular budget item. And you only buy them like once every 10 years. So when we would be ready for that, that's something the athletic director might say, could we use money from the capital gate receipts to buy the new hurdles? So those are the kind of things that would come out of that. Now, some things might be a little more money. And what Marge said to me is like, we need a new press box. They wanted to put bathrooms there at some point. So maybe that might be an amount that we might want to say, we need to think about this in terms of our 5-year capital project, because those might be pretty pricey to do. But let's say we found out we could do bathrooms for $80,000. Well, that's something that we could plan for. We could probably look at our total and say, in 2 years, we'd have about $100,000 in that account. We could put those bathrooms in. So it's just the 50% is arbitrary, and I'm happy to take feedback on a different amount or another suggestion, but that's where that 50% came from. It's just thinking about taking gate receipts, about half of the gate receipts every year, putting it aside for a little bigger project. So again, happy to take any feedback.
Yeah, my question was really about the fact that some years we may not even need to take 50 and other years we may need to take more. And I'd rather see it coming from the superintendent as a recommendation for that line item than limiting ourselves before we even get started. And that, the reason she was talking about the press box was because that was the original reason for saving the gate receipts was the press box. So you have here the athletic director, the building principal, the CFO, and the superintendent, and I think it's really the superintendent that should be making that decision after talking to all of those other people. Not us talking to all those other people.
Yep.
But you talking to all those other people. Sheila?
So like we do with a 5-year capital plan, for both the theater and the athletic director, can we have them do like a 5-year plan to encompass all of like what they foresee in the recycling of repairs? You know, like the hurdles, for instance, like when does the athletic director think she needs the hurdles? And because maybe it's not 50%, like maybe one year you're going to need some of that expenses to buy helmets, or for the theater to buy, I don't know,
A curtain.
not curtains because those are expensive, but like something else. You know what I'm like, something else that.
So 50% is the minimum that we would.
No,
put into
we
the
won't go with
capital?
the curtain. I mean, that was just a joke.
No, like
50% is the minimum that you would put into the capital, so that
right, but that's what
allows-
I'm saying. So like, what happens in a year that they need more expense wise? It wouldn't be 50% capital. It would be 20% capital, and the rest would be expense.
There might be years that you might not touch the capital.
Yeah,
It's not a spend every year 50% on a capital project.
I just want to make sure you're going to have enough, like lay out the plan and then have enough in both funds to support what's needed.
Right, so that's what I was gonna get to. So right now, they don't have a 5-year
Right.
plan. So that would be our goal, for them to complete 5-year plans. And we might not touch those capital gate receipts for several years, depending on, there might be a year where they don't need a capital. So you're building that bank up.
Right.
Because there might be a project where you need a couple of years of savings in order to.
Yeah, I
to
understand that,
build
but what happens if in that year you needed more expenses? Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
have
you
bank-
mean other
Yeah.
than, so remember that 50% is not their budget. We have
No,
them
it
fully
says
budgeted in our budget. Those are like the extra things they need. So they want to buy sweatshirts for a team that won the championship, like things that aren't planned for come out of that side of gate
Yeah,
receipts.
but we've
not
seen like in the
planned
past,
expenses.
like the budgets get cut and they need helmets, and all of a sudden we're scrambling to get the kids helmets.
I
or
want you
they-
to stop saying that.
Well, we did 1 year.
We did 1 year, or
I know,
or
I'm just saying,
uniforms.
but that was
Yeah.
in the past, we're moving
Right.
forward. This
I just
po-
don't want it to
I-
to happen again. So like
Well,
if
it
we
says
can,
here that half of the total collected can be earmarked.
Right.
So it's not a definite, it's a can.
And it's always as
It's an
approved by the
optional.
school committee. I will
Okay,
bring
yeah.
this to you at budget season. So
Okay.
at budget season, I will bring the athletic director or band director's requests
okay,
out of gate receipts.
Yeah.
Which may be up to a 50% expense, might be less, and that
Okay.
would roll over into capital. And I'll make a recommendation for, and we're putting this much in the revenue account.
and then we'll do the 5-year plan at that point.
Yeah, so that
Okay.
will always come at budget time. Only
Okay.
emergencies would come up otherwise.
Okay,
But otherwise, all this would come to you at budget season, and it's all still at your discretion. This just sets some goals.
Yep.
If there's no goal, then what gets put away?
Right.
Maybe nothing, maybe everything, who knows?
Yeah.
So the goal is to set a criteria. that
No, I
says,
agree
we'll
with
try
that.
to at least put 50% away for capital projects.
I just wanted to have a
on
plan
emergencies.
of like what a 5-year plan of
Me
what.
too.
Yeah.
I just think
That's
this
fine.
last
We'll get
sentence, this last sentence could be reworked.
Okay,
50% is just arbit,
It does say can be earmarked.
Yeah, I didn't
I
catch
know,
that
but-
can.
I think it's,
all
I'm
right,
fine with
Vic
it.
had something you wanted to say.
As long as we have a plan.
The athletic director and the performance arts person,
Mhm.
they can spend all of that 50%? that year?
no, they can make a request to myself and the CFO and the principal. to-
So they
to
can't
spend
go
it.
out and spend any of that money unless it goes through the superintendent. Is that
Correct.
Thank you.
I just-
Okay,
May I have I think Vicky had a question.
oh,
And
I'm
then I
sorry.
was-
Go ahead.
Sorry, just a quick question. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. So 50% of it can be earmarked for future capital projects, and the other 50%,
Would be used for any current expenses, like a new expense, like that.
so something that's not in the current budget. So if
Correct.
something comes up out of cycle and they need it before next year's
And
budget.
it's not a
is-
big expense. It's not something that we have to save up for. So let's say there's 20
Got it.
grand that we want to put in capital, there's another 20 grand, and they might say, the athletic director might say, you know, it's not due till next year, but the boys' track uniforms are really in bad shape. It was a rough season, there was a lot of rain, whatever. Again, I'm making this up as an
Okay.
example. And I need an extra 2,000 to buy these. So it would be a small expense that they weren't expecting.
Got it.
And it could even be like the boys won the championship, we would like to use some of this money to buy them jackets or sweatshirt or to buy the banner or whatever it is that they may want to do out of that expense. It's not built into the regular budget.
Got it. But so if the performing arts director, say, wants to use $400 on something, that has to go, all of those have to go before the school committee, no matter
Only
how
something that's
small?
not in their budget. No, that typically is not. Most of the time I don't get a request for a small number like that out of
But if
gate
they want to
receipts.
use the gate receipts?
They wanted to use gate receipts, my guess it would be more for something like some choral stands or something that's like a
Okay.
couple thousand. That's what I've seen typically, a uniform sometimes to help with the uniform allocate, because that's a big expense when you replace the uniforms for the band. So that's something that might come out of the capital side. It's typically heavier on the athletics because they bring in most of the gate receipts. So we always look at the percentage of money that's been brought in by athletics versus performance. And I have to say, typically, there's usually a good relationship between the two leaders
Yeah.
of those departments, and they work together on their apps.
Okay.
Thank
Um,
you.
You say that, or this policy says that these funds will not be used for operational expenses.
Correct.
And operational expenses, as my understanding, is uniforms, helmets, equipment, all of the safety items, all the things that we need for, to operate an athletic program. And my second question is, I thought, after reading through all of this, that the gate receipts are one fund, but performing arts is another fund. Are you talking about merging the two funds?
No.
Because I want to make sure that you're not talking about merging both of those types
There
of,
are currently two funds in this district, so they would stay in those two funds. Same policy for each fund.
okay.
That was my question. My
Oh,
question was if there was two enterprise funds.
You all done?
No,
I have a question.
okay.
And you're right, Marge, I gave a bad example. I shouldn't have used uniforms, jackets for their championship. That's what I'll use as my example.
Yeah, but if we're talking operational expenses.
But championship jackets wouldn't be an operational expense. We wouldn't have that in our budget.
No, we wouldn't. But the other issue that I had was making gate receipts and admissions the procedure, an exhibit. You can take an exhibit out of a policy book without anybody's permission.
Right,
And,
because it's just process.
well, except that if I'm John Q. Public and I want to see what they do with the money that I pay every time I go to a football game, I want to be able to go and see that. I don't want to have to go seek a school committee member or an administrator to find out where that money goes. And so I think this should be an R and not an E.
So if you look at F under the procedure, number 1F, it says quarterly reports of money collected and funds dispersed shall be compiled by the business office and presented at the school committee. So
Yeah.
that's how the public would see it.
I see that, but they wouldn't see it if we tore it out.
Well, the only reason we would tear it out would be if we changed it. We said, now we're going to present those monthly instead of quarterly, or we're going to present them annually instead of quarterly. So there would have to be a change in this for us to pull it out, and procedures can be changed internally. That's why it's an exhibit.
Actually, an exhibit can come out just because it's an exhibit.
It could,
So I think it should be an R, so it can't come out without a reason.
but an R would mean you're referencing some particular statute, right, Marianne?
I don't understand why it's not all one.
Because we don't put procedure in policy.
I don't either, but since they split it, I'm saying I don't think this should be an E. And I asked Mary Ann this morning to look at it. Haven't spoken to her all day. I just asked her to look at it.
This is a first reading, correct?
Yeah. It's the first read.
Fix it.
Yep.
We're gonna fix it.
But
But I-
what do you mean by fix it?
Well, there are some things that I'm hearing that need to be changed.
Can you give us an example?
Well, again, and every district does it differently. So I'm working in one district where all of the R's are now being incorporated into the policy so that, again, once the school committee adopts it, it's not changing. So what Marge is saying is she's not happy with the fact that this is an exhibit, because as an exhibit, it can be changed without it coming back to school committee. And she doesn't want it so that it can be changed without it coming back to school committee.
Right, but R's are references, not procedures, and this is a procedure. So
What is the
be an
R? I don't know what you guys are talking
What's
about.
happening in a lot of other districts is they're putting,
So
we're
this is how it was
putting it together
presented the
as
first
a
time.
policy, procedure, protocol, all on one policy that the school committee can adopt.
It was
And
presented
it's
as
funny
one.
because
Yeah.
some people are doing it, putting them back.
And I think it should be.
Can I ask a question? What is an R, the policy?
No,
I've
so,
never
so
heard someone
some
say that.
policies have a reference that's attached to it.
So what am I looking at? Where's the reference?
We don't have a reference. Marge
can
is
vote
just
to make
suggesting
it.
that our exhibit, which is an example
We can
of
vote
what
to
our
make it all.
process is, get changed to an R. And I'm just saying procedurally, it's not an R. An R is a reference that's attached to a policy. And typically, procedure is not part of a policy. So that's just what I'm gonna say, there's a national book of standards. The National Book of Standards does not have process in policy. And exhibits are usually process that you highlight for informational purposes. And I know what Marge is saying is we could pull this anytime we want, but I'm bringing to you as an exhibit for your permission to post it. And I guess I'm just saying, I would never pull this without saying, we're gonna pull this exhibit because we're editing blah, 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 whatever we're editing on it. But otherwise it wouldn't come out. Could it legally come out? If you had a different superintendent, maybe they would pull it out without telling you. But if you approve it as an exhibit, I'm not pulling it out without bringing it back.
Will this go into our policy book?
Yeah, all of these go into, it goes on our
I mean, will
website.
the procedure go into the policy book?
Yes, all the exhibits are part of the policy book.
Actually, I'll make a confession to all of you. I don't save the exhibits because they're really not germane to the policy. They're just an example
Right.
of how the policy would be used. So if you gave me this, I wouldn't include this E because it's just an exhibit. This policy used to be one one policy with both of these items on the policy.
Yeah.
If you're going to split the policy, then I think that it needs to be an R, so it stays as a part of DFD, or you can bring it back and make it as one whole policy again.
Actually, our policy was student activity funds heavy, and it didn't really address much of gate receipts at all. It was
Yeah.
mostly student activity funds. That's another reason why we separated it.
I'm just saying that I object to it being an exhibit because it takes us out of the equation.
What part is the exhibit that you're concerned about and who,
That whole
It
page.
says DFD
Procedures.
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
so this is spelled out so that the people on the ground at the gate can go, this is exactly what we need to do, right? So then who are we concerned would disappear this without us knowing?
Another administrator.
Anybody.
But how?
You just pull it. It's not, an exhibit does not require
But
a
who
school
can pull
committee
it?
vote.
Can I pull it?
Yeah.
How?
No, not you can't pull it, but another superintendent. could pull it.
Superintendent.
Why are we legislating on the basis of not being of trust? I guess I'm so happy to see that we have a structure and a procedure. What I'm hearing is that we don't have, that we're lacking trust in a future administration to do the right thing, but I don't really feel like that's something we should be kind of putting our fingers in. We have the structure in place, and then we have a procedure that's pretty direct, and it's so much better than what we had in place, and I feel like it's really straightforward. So I'm just kind of feeling confused about why we're having a discussion about this specifically.
I'm not having a discussion about trust. I trust our administration explicitly. For me, it's more about if we're going to keep the public informed of what we're doing, and you keep this in the book. I wouldn't keep it in my book. Why wouldn't I keep it in my book? Because it's an exhibit and I don't need an example of it. So it can be pulled at any time. So Vic, go ahead.
Can we table this?
Well, this is just a
This
first
is
read.
just
I
a
just
first
take
reading.
your feedback.
Just a first
Still has
reading.
to come back. It's just a first read.
All right.
So I guess what I need from all of you is what edits do you support to make in the next version of this is what we're looking for.
But my issue is there is a school committee individually have different opinions of this. We've just seen this, and they've gone through it, correct? Anybody seen it before this, other than two of us?
I
The
got
policy-
it on Thursday in policy subcommittee.
Policy
So what I'm saying is that if they can take it, make their changes, and then come back and.
Do you want to do, so I'm happy to take if you want to email me what your suggestions are, and I can bring those up, but you'll have to vote on any of the suggested changes, so that's.
Tara has something she wants to say.
No, I can see both sides to, both, I don't have a problem with it as it stands. But one of the things, when we looked at it originally on Thursday, it had the different communities that have those things in their policies. So it isn't abnormal for communities to have the procedure in the policies. Because the one that I have in front of me, North Kingston, Portsmouth, they have these items in their policy. So it's really just a matter of how the committee feels, if they want to have the policy and procedures together or if they want to have them separate. So I believe that's the only thing on the table right now. Am I correct?
Yes. So you mean just
No.
blend this into the policy, so we have a two-page.
And so instead of having
Nikki's got a question.
2 pages, you would like it just to be a 1-page policy. I'm sorry. Instead of it being a 2-document policy with an
Yes.
exhibit, you would just like it to be 1.
Nikki? Yes.
So to my mind, sort of to clarify, our job as a school committee is to create policy
Correct.
in all things. And in all things, the superintendent's job is then to work out how best to work with under that policy,
Correct.
right? So in my mind, that's why it makes sense to separate them, because the superintendent, yes, could pull the procedure at any time because that's the superintendent's job, right? We come up with the policy. The superintendent comes up with the nuts and bolts as to how we work under that policy. So to keep them separate, the school committee piece and the superintendent piece, the practical, tactical, how we could best meet this policy makes perfect sense to me. And in all things, the procedure is obviously up to the administrator that the school committee hires, right? Is that correct?
Sheila? I thought you were done.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was just
So
checking that
if
was correct.
we do separate it, I think, if we keep it separated, I do think that the quarterly reporting and keeping them separate, enterprise funds should be then moved to the policy.
That's what I was just gonna say. I agree with you on
Like,
that.
because then we have no idea financially what's going on.
So
Or
moving F over to the policy.
if everyone decides that it's fine to keep an exhibit, then I think we need to pick the ones that aren't, like keeping them separated in separate enterprise funds. Keeping the quarterly reports
Yeah.
should go over to our purview. So like the school committee can ultimately see what's going on. We're not in charge of like, you need 2 gate people, you need 5, like we don't
Yep.
need.
That makes sense.
Marge,
Okay.
I have
I'm
something.
just thinking, yeah, go ahead. Then I was going to take.
I was going to say that before Sheila spoke up because I think Nikki's right. And but I also think that we've had questions about transparency in the past with gate receipts. And I don't feel that the policy is quite as specific as it should be.
Yeah.
And I had also called out F as something that should be incorporated into that policy.
Yeah.
I'd have to look more closely to see what else should maybe be blended in, but if they're going to be 2 separate documents, I would definitely keep this like pretty like nuts and bolts procedure, but then put those, quarterly reports, money collected, that stuff in the policy.
Definitely E and F needs to be in the
Yeah.
policy, not in the procedure.
Correct.
Yes, because one of the things we used to have, I see you, Vic, is that people would just put a fishbowl out and ask for donations. And we never had any accounting, and I don't know if that still goes on, but we didn't have any accounting for how much money came in because it was whatever people put in the fishbowl. And if you were, anybody could take a chunk of it out and nobody would know the difference. And that's why we required tickets. And that's why we had to put it into a policy, because that was the only way we could say, look, here are the rules. This is how you do it. If I'm sorry, but that's it. So that's something else I think that needs to be considered. And yes, I saw you, but I saw you because I know you had your hand up. So go ahead.
No, not a
Go
problem.
ahead.
I'm being very patient.
I know, go ahead.
I'm looking at PFD, not the PFD. The first line, use of funds will come from the athletic performance with approval from the building principal. Now, that doesn't mean that person can spend the money, correct?
No. All expenditures come through me in the end.
And I'm looking at the checks and balances, right? I'm looking at checks and balances, right? And then it's the school, then it's the superintendent and the school committee, and then they can spend the money. Correct. Now, in the background here, the elephant that's in the room is the fact that we all have seen somewhere where there was a treasurer who absconded with funds and got arrested.
Yes.
So, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
locally, in fact, I might add, but I
yes.
don't want to go there. All right?
But that was a separate fund.
Right, but this is to protect our funds to be used properly, in my opinion. And I agree with it. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, and I apologize for not knowing procedure, to amend this policy to include E and F in the policy section of policy DFD. So that's my recommendation, or that's my request.
So we already have
Motion.
E is built into the second paragraph. It would be repetitive. That's just as a reminder in the process. It says the money is used, like this it just gets more detailed about who does what in E. So I think F would cover what you're looking for.
I just want to make sure we separate the accounts.
So you want me, so maybe that's in this other, in the paragraph that's in the policy for number 3, I can just put in athletic director for the athletic accounts and music and
Correct.
for the other. So I can just, I'll just
Okay.
break it out in that language there.
Yeah.
But I think it's repetitive to add E over to the other side. I think
Okay.
we can just add F.
Okay, so do we want to vote on this on a first reading, or do we want to table it
Can
till
I-
the next meeting?
Can I
Yes.
just ask a quick clarification question? That being said, I'm assuming E and F will remain in the exhibit as well?
Yes, I was going
Okay.
to take it out.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, Marge, I have one more question.
Sure.
How will this affect, I think about some of the small performing arts events like Music Cafe, where there is, like you say, the fishbowl, but it's donations requested. Are they going to have to start getting into selling tickets for
They
something
were
like
supposed
that?
to, they were never supposed to just take
So
donations.
there's no admission though. That's literally a donation to the.
Right,
district,
there's no
There's no
admission.
admission fee.
But there's no accounting, no, there never was, but there's no accounting for the money in the fishbowl
Right.
either. And that was the issue. And
So
yes, and that goes straight to what whoever mentioned about the person who
Right, there
helped
should still be
themselves
some
to
accounting,
some
yeah.
money and actually used one of the school committee members' children that's how he got found out.
So we won't be able to host any events in the school that are no admission and people can just make a donation?
No, I think you can. It's just accounting for the fishbowl.
So-
Because you want that fishbowl money to go back to the students.
Right. Oh, I
So-
thought we were saying that you had to have the ticket that's divided into, that you couldn't have the fishbowl. But
Well, there should be some accounting. So,
Yes, thank you. I didn't realize that was happening. I'll look into that.
yeah, so
Yeah.
there should be, like, even if you're
You're
making a
correct. That
donation.
should- That is a music department event and the donations are going to the music department. We should have an accounting for that.
Yeah.
I agree, but I totally understand there should be accounting for it. But does it require the 2 ticket? Like that just becomes cumbersome when it's a small donations.
Madam Chair,
But if you want honesty,
It's still a gate receipt.
Still, it's still money.
why are you even going to vote on the exhibit. That should just be the superintendent's prerogative. Once you put the pieces of the exhibit into the policy, then that's up to the superintendent as to how she implements your policy.
Right.
Like getting a gatekeeper, getting tickets, that's
Yeah.
not something the school committee should even be voting
But
on.
I think Nikki was just making sure that
Those things.
those things continue, not we're stopping.
Or not, but at least some clarity so people
Yeah.
know and they're following the,
But I think. the
but that's up to the
superintendent-
superintendent. Yeah. I think it's just something to be thinking about because that becomes very cumbersome, I think, for small. There has to be accounting, but I don't know the best way to do it.
Well, we used to do it with tickets and writing the amount on the ticket,
Or
yes.
you can get a receipt book.
Or a receipt book, yeah. What?
Anna,
It's too low.
I have a difficult time with donations, whatever it might be. You know, apparently you just made the statement that they're gonna take that money and they're gonna use it in the music area, which I disagree with. I think it should go into the performing arts area as a general fund, but not in.
No, the account is a performing arts account. It's not a music account.
Only because, not you, but before you. Right?
We have PTSD.
We do.
There was money that went into.
I've been calling that BA before Anna.
See us start
So
twitching.
you have a
What's
BA
wrong?
then, right? Anyway, and I'm concerned, because we have been here a while, had the experience of seeing some of that money go south. The other reason is, if we're gonna do what we're doing with the gate receipts for the athletics.
Yep.
Then why should music have the funds to themselves?
No, well, that's what I'm saying. It's not music. It's the performing arts department that's who has it. So Christy would be the one who recommends the money coming out of that. Vicky Boyle would be the one who makes the recommendations coming out of the performing
Right.
arts.
But it's not just for those people, the music department.
No, I didn't know that what did you just call it, Music Cafe was.
It's just an example.
Right, is the donations that are going to the music department. It should fall under this policy and there should be
That's
some
what I'm
accounting
looking
for it.
for.
No, I agree with you. I just didn't know that was what they were doing. So we
That's
just have
what-
to put this, so whenever we adopt a new policy that's going to impact staff, then we're going to share it out with staff and make sure everyone's aware of the requirements.
Well,
So,
that's just one of the reasons why I didn't think that the E should be an E.
yeah.
I think it should be available. I mean, it's a district. It's a way the district does business and should be disseminated to everybody who raises money. All right, should we vote on this as a first reading or should we table it?
I say we vote on it.
Yeah.
The
We're
motion's
moving
on the-
F
we
over to
can-
this thing, right?
Yeah, and the E language that you said.
Clearing up to
I'm not
the,
right.
you'll see this again, and when you get it as a
We don't
second
have
draft,
it.
you don't have to vote to finalize it that day either, so
No, I'm not
when
gonna
it
vote
comes
for it,
back,
because I
it
think
still
you should
doesn't
go
say
back and
everything
fix
you
it
want,
first.
we can clean it up again
It's
and bring
big.
it back. It's only final when you
No, it'll be a
say.
second reading.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what yeah, you're right. That's not what I'm saying.
What's wrong?
But it's all right, we'll vote.
Okay.
Wait, we don't.
So we're voting to reestablish, so now we need to restate the motion.
The motion is to approve the policy DFD and policy DFDE.
For the first reading.
For a first reading.
But shouldn't there be an amendment to that now?
And so, yes, we need an amendment.
Right, well, you can't vote on this if you're amending it. So
Right.
you do
Okay.
amendment
Right,
first.
and we're not, there's no action to vote on the exhibit, that's not.
But we're going to
The
make a,
exhibit shouldn't even be part of this.
No, I know, I think Diana just read that out loud though, but there
We're
is
gonna make a
no.
motion.
exhibit.
You got that?
yeah, I'm going to make a motion that we take F and E from the gate receipts and admissions policy DFD-E and put them into the policy itself.
Second.
Discussion. Yes, I have discussion. I'm not trying to be a pain in the neck, but if we're doing all the proceeds of the gate account are going to the athletics, why aren't all the proceeds from the collection from performing arts going to performing arts?
They are.
They are, it's on
Where?
the back page.
Back page.
Okay, so then that should be
They're
E.
both- Yep.
You're talking about E
They're
and both,
E. Yep,
both
E.
E's
Both
and
E's,
both-
both F's.
Okay, all right.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
You're
Aye.
just voting on a redraft, right? I'm gonna redraft
Yes.
this, okay.
Raise your hands, please.
Oh, sorry.
All against? Me.
Okay, so I'll redraft this for our next.
All right, the next item on the agenda.
No, we gotta vote on the.
Now we have to vote on
Oh, yeah, all right, now
Now
let's vote on the
Now we need to vote on
Oh, we have to do
amended
both.
motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
I think through that.
The second thing is the school committee May meeting date. Anna and I put this before you because we're looking at one meeting. You want to talk about that, Anna, why we're looking at one meeting in May?
Sure, so one of the meetings falls on the same date again as a performance that we all missed the spring concert or the almost spring conference that they had. There's another, I keep saying conference, I mean concert, on the same date as our second May meeting, but so that we can attend that meeting. We were just going to ask you if we could cancel the last one and have the first one, but then I asked Marge if we could shift it to the middle to make sure we didn't miss any business that might need to come up in May if we did it too early. So my request was to move it between our next two meetings, so I'm sorry. It's a Monday that was not on your calendar, so that's why we put it on here. So it's Monday, May 16th would be our one May meeting. Okay.
No, because we can go down there.
I will not be in state.
The Mount Hope Art Show is on that night, but it's also here in the, I believe, in the auditorium. But you won't be there. We can,
You come in at different times.
yeah, I know. But if Erin's not going to be here, she said. Anybody else have a problem?
I mean, I don't know what's planned for that meeting. If it's a heavy hitter I shouldn't miss or
It
not.
will be where we do our layoffs. I mean, we could have, it'll just be tight for us to get all the information we need for the layoffs for the first meeting in May. I had planned on doing it the
I think
second
if I'm
meeting
the
in
only
May.
one who has a conflict, I think you should go for it.
You sure?
Well, of course, yeah.
Okay.
Either.
All right, then we'll go for that.
And if something
So
changes,
May
I'll be here.
16th?
May 16th, if that's all right with everyone else.
And that way we can see all the
Can we
things.
not have it at 5:30 though?
No, we'll have it at
I
regular.
told you, this is
I can't.
this was a one-shot
You're
deal.
trying to put me over the edge.
You, I hauled that wheelchair in and out of that car 4 times today. All right, did we vote on we voted on? No. So I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, no. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We will be going into executive session.
Oh my God, you're with me, and then I lose my.